You do not invade a continent from the sea. That was the rule. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a law of war written in blood and failure. For centuries, every military thinker knew the same truth. Landing an army onto a hostile shore meant slaughter. Troops exposed. Boats stuck. Men drowning under the weight of their own gear while machine guns tore the surf apart. Gallipoli, in 1915, burned the lesson. Into every General S-mind amphibious assaults were fantasies conceived by optimists and executed by gravediggers. Professional militaries believed in this rule with near religious certainty. Naval officers, army planners, war colleges on both sides of the Atlantic. They all agreed ships could deliver men to ports but never onto defended beaches. Not at scale. Not under fire. Not without catastrophic losses. So when a small, ugly, flat-bottomed boat appears made of plywood and steel, powered by an engine no one respects, it gets laughed out of the room. They call it a joke. A swamp boat, a civilian toy with no place in serious war planning. But in 1944, on the beaches of Normandy, that joke carries the fate of Western Europe on its bow, and the man who built it never wears a uniform. Andrew Jackson Higgins is not supposed to matter. He's born in 1886, a rough-edged New Orleans native with a restless mind and a permanent chip on his shoulder. He doesn't attend elite academies. He doesn't speak the polished language of admirals. He builds boats for oilmen and trappers' workhorses, designed to claw through Louisiana swamps, where water turns to mud without warning. By the 1930s, Higgins runs a modest boat-building operation. His specialty isn't speed or elegancy, it's access. His boats go where others can't. They slide over sandbars. They survive collisions. They don't care if the shoreline is gentle or hostile. That difference matters more than anyone realizes. Because by 1940, the world is on fire. Nazi Germany overruns Europe with a terrifying combination of speed and coordination. France collapses in 6 weeks. Britain stands alone. And across the Atlantic, American planners confront an impossible question. How do you take Europe back? Every answer leads to the same nightmare. A forced landing against fortified beaches, defended by concrete bunkers, artillery, and interlocking fields of fire. The U.S. Navy offers traditional landing craft boats with rounded bows and deep keels. Fine for ports, useless for beaches. They ground too far offshore. Soldiers must jump into chest-deep water, weighed down by 30 kilograms of gear, while bullets chew the surface into foam. Higgins watches these demonstrations and shakes his head. He's already solved the problem by accident. Years earlier, designing boats for oil exploration, Higgins created a shallow draft craft with a square bow and reinforced hull. It slams directly onto shore. It doesn't stop short. It doesn't hesitate. It hits sand, mud, coral, then backs out again. The Marines notice first. In 1938, a Marine Corps officer named Victor Krulak watches Higgins' boats land men on a Louisiana beach. He writes a memo that will change history. It says, in plain language, that this design could be the key to future amphibious assaults. The Navy ignores it. They don't trust civilians. They don't trust swamp builders. They certainly don't trust a man who openly insults naval engineers and refuses to play politics. But war doesn't care about pride. And by 1941, the United States needs a miracle. You stand on the edge of the future, and no one believes you belong there. In early 1942, Andrew Higgins is summoned to Washington. Not invited, summoned. The Navy wants boats. Lots of them. Yesterday, the Higgins boat, officially designated LCVP, landing craft, vehicle, personnel, is brutally simple. 11 meters long, flat bottom, shallow draft of less than 1 meter, powered by a single diesel engine pushing 225 horsepower. It carries 36 fully equipped soldiers, or 1 jeep and a dozen men. But its most radical feature is the bow ramp. Not a side exit, not a jump. A ramp that drops in seconds. Under fire, the Navy hates it. They claim the ramp weakens the hull. They say the boat will break apart in heavy surf. They argue it lacks armor. They complain it looks crude. Higgins doesn't argue. He demonstrates the boat accelerates toward shore at full throttle. 10 knots. 8.64. It doesn't slow. It doesn't veer. The bow slams onto sand. The ramp drops. Men pour out in under 8 seconds. Not climbing, not jumping. Running. Then the boat reverses. Clean. Fast. Alive. The Navy still hesitates. So Higgins does what he always done. He builds. Anyway, by mid-1942, his New Orleans factories operate around the clock. Workers sleep. On site, many are women. Many are black Americans barred from other war industries. Higgins hires them anyway. He doesn't care about tradition. He cares about output. At peak production, Higgins Industries produces more than 20,000 boats LC is LC Mis-1 every 92 minutes. But the real test comes under fire. November 1942. Operation Torch. Allied landings in North Africa. For the first time, Higgins boats carry American soldiers into combat. The surf breaks hard. The beaches aren't friendly. French Vichy forces fire sporadically. Boats hit sand exactly as designed. Ramps drop. Men move. Losses are lighter than expected. The rule cracks. But Europe isn't the real test. The Pacific is island after island. Coral reefs that shred conventional hulls. Japanese defenders dug in with fanatical resolve. At Guadalcanal, at Tarawa, at Saipan. At Tarawa in November 1943, the tide goes wrong. Boats ground early. Men wade hundreds of meters under fire. Casualties skyrocket. But where Higgins' boats reach the shore, Marines survive. They notice the difference immediately. The LCVP becomes the standard, the only craft trusted to land troops directly onto hostile beaches. Now comes the moment everything rests on. June 6, 1944. Normandy. You are crossing the English Channel in darkness. The sea heaves. The air smells of oil and fear. Around you, more than 4,000 landing craft move in formation. At H-hour 6:30, the German defenses wait. Concrete bunkers. MG-42s firing 1,200 rounds per minute. Artillery zeroed on the beaches. The ramps will drop anyway. At Omaha Beach, Higgins' boats take catastrophic fire. Some explode. Some burn. Some vanish. But most hit the sand. 1,500 yards. 1,200 yards. 900 yards. 600. Bullets hammer steel. Engines scream. Waves crash over the bow. The boat slams forward. Ramp down. Men run. Not jump. Not drown. Run in the chaos. Seconds. Matter. 8 seconds. 10. 12. Thousands live because those seconds exist. By nightfall, despite horrific losses, Allied forces hold the beach, and Europe begins to breathe again. Halfway across the world, on the same day, Higgins boats land troops in the Pacific too. One design. 2 oceans. 1 war. What they don't realize, what no one fully understands in June of 1944 is just how deep the impact runs. Dwight D. Eisenhower later states that Andrew Higgins won the war for us not because he commanded armies, but because he made them land. German commanders study the landings and draw a brutal conclusion. The Atlantic Wall failed, not because it was weak, but because the enemy reached it intact. In the Pacific, Japanese defenses adapt. They shift artillery closer to shore. They mine beaches. They try to counter the boats. It doesn't work. By 1945, amphibious assault doctrine is rewritten around Higgins' designs. Every major landing from Iwo Jima to Okinawa depends on them. Without these boats, D-Day doesn't happen in 1944. Maybe not in 1945. Maybe not at all. And without D-Day, the war changes shape entirely. Andrew Higgins never becomes a general. After the war, his factories close. his fortune evaporates. He dies in 1952. Arches 66, far from the beaches, his boats conquered, but his legacy remains. More than 150,000 Allied soldiers land on deep. Tens of thousands survive because they reach the sand running, not swimming. Their names fill cemeteries from Normandy to Manila. They come from Iowa, Texas, New York, California. Farm boys, dock workers, students. They trust a boat no one believed in, and to this day, every modern amphibious landing traces its lineage back to that flat-bottomed joke. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing these forgotten stories from the archives. If you want to join us on this mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or state, and tell us if someone in your family served. Thank you for ensuring that Andrew Jackson, Higgins, and the hundreds of thousands who crossed hostile shores in his boats do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered.